Hi guys, Bolts96 here, but the O is a 0, and we are back having a look at the Premier League teams and one player from each Premier League team that they could sign. Today we are looking at Bournemouth. Bournemouth have had a pretty tough season, probably expectedly. They are at the minute pretty touch and go whether they are going to get relegated or whether they are going to stay in the Premier League. So today's video was quite tough for me to call. I had to consider the players that might be available and who they might be able to get or afford depending on what league they will be in come next season. So some transfers may be dependent on them being in the Premier League, some may not, but I will finish with this introduction and we will crack on with the video. Arsenal, Nuno Tavares. I did consider Reece Nelson as his contract is up, but Bournemouth are short on left backs. They have Vina on loan and Zamora. They need more depth there. Nuno Tavares would be a really good player to get in on loan for the season once he comes back from his current loan at Marseille. Granted, this would only have a chance of happening if Bournemouth don't get relegated though. Aston Villa, Marvellous Nakamba. Currently out on loan at Luton, Nakamba would be a very solid and experienced player to slot into that Bournemouth centre defensive mid role, having played in the Eredivisie, Belgian Pro League, Premier League, Europa League, Champions League and 22 caps for Zimbabwe. But most importantly, as referenced, playing currently at Luton in the Championship in the second half of the season, as that is unfortunately where I do probably see Bournemouth being next year. Apologies, Bournemouth fans. Nakamba would be the exact sort of player they need to bounce back up and would be a quality addition to that squad. Brentford, Sergi Canos. Depending on what league Bournemouth are in next season, Canos could either be a starting player for them or a squad player, and considering his contract is up in the summer, I think he would be a very good signing either way. Having a lot of experience at Championship level and playing 31 out of 38 games for Brentford in the Premier League last season before losing his place and being loaned out to Olympiacos. He has his prime years ahead of him, and as a technical player he would be something that Bournemouth don't currently have a lot of. Brighton, Adam Lallana. Adam Lallana doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He is a very talented player who can play just as well with both feet. He was absolutely unreal for Southampton for a couple of years, and he scored some great goals for both them as well as Liverpool. Just look at his solo goal versus Hull and his first ever goal for Liverpool if you don't believe me. Yes, he is past his peak and his fitness does need to be carefully managed, but his contract is up in the summer and Bournemouth would benefit from getting in a player of his technical quality and experience. Chelsea, Trevor Chalobah. Bournemouth do have decent centre-backs currently, all of which are at a good age, but there aren't many other players they could realistically pick up from Chelsea. I think Chalobah is going to get loaned out this summer and Bournemouth could be a likely destination. He is a versatile player who can play in defence or midfield. He'll be looking to prove himself to the Chelsea hierarchy as well, in a similar vein to Mount, Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek, who have all had successful loan moves in recent years. I think this would be a nice addition to the Bournemouth squad. Crystal Palace, Luka Milivojevic. Milivojevic has had an excellent time at Palace for a number of years, and although he doesn't tend to start too many games anymore, he has something which Bournemouth could do with: more experience. Bournemouth has a very young side, and you can see that in the way they play sometimes, with a bit of naivety and a bit of brashness as well. A player of Milivojevic's standing who could come into that midfield and read the game in a way that maybe the other Bournemouth players don't would be invaluable, particularly as he will be on a free in the summer. Everton, James Garner. Hasn't really worked out for Garner at Everton this season. He is still young and can develop further, but I think a loan move next season would probably be the right call to get minutes under his belt and give him some confidence. Whether it be in the Premier League or Championship, Bournemouth could pick him up on loan and give him some game time. If he put in the performances that he was putting in for Forest, I'm sure he would have a successful season there. Fulham, Joe Bryan. Joe Bryant was excellent for Fulham in their promotion campaign in the 2019-20 season, scoring those 2 goals in the playoff final as well. Since then, he has been a bit more of a fringe player, only playing half of the available games, and currently out on loan at Nice, where he hasn't played too much. But he does have quality and still has fuel in the tank at 29 years of age. Bournemouth are low in the left-back position, and Brian could do a job there, as he will come in as yet another free transfer. Leeds, Daniel James. This one could cost Bournemouth a bit of money and would be dependent on them keeping their place in the Prem next season, but they have shown with the recent signing of Utara that they are willing to spend if they need to. James's stock has unfortunately dropped since his move to Manchester United, but don't let that fool you into thinking he can't still do a job for a team like Bournemouth. His speed makes him incredibly dangerous down that wing, and I will be very interested to see him and Utara pouncing on the knockdowns from Solanke and Kiefer Moore. Leicester City, Hamza Chowdhury. A lot of the players I've picked for Bournemouth so far are players who will be available on a free this summer, and that isn't a slight on them, but there are some genuinely good players who will be ripe for the picking, and Hamza Chowdhury is another one of those. I'm quite surprised that it looks like Leicester will be letting his contract expire, as he is a good player who fills the homegrown quota. Chowdhury is a big player and a good tackler of the ball. Currently on loan at Watford, he could create quite a good partnership with Billing in the middle. Liverpool, Adrian. If Bournemouth do drop down into the Championship next season, I would be surprised if they managed to retain Neto, which would leave Mark Travers and Darren Randolph as the only goalkeepers. They are still good options and might even get in ahead of Adrian, but as his contract is up this summer, he will be quite a risk-free option. Get him in and you have a player who has played at every level of club football and won every trophy there is with Liverpool. Whether he has played much for them is irrelevant in terms of the winning mentality that he would bring to a Bournemouth team who aren't used to winning many games in a Premier League season. Manchester City, Maximo Perrone. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Perrone. What I do know is that he is almost certainly going to be sent out on loan in the summer. He's young and needs to go somewhere where he's going to play. Bournemouth may or may not be that place, but there aren't many other players for City that Bournemouth could realistically be in for. So why not a no strings attached loan for a Manchester City player, purchased for around £10 million only a couple months ago? Manchester United, Alex Telles. Bournemouth are light in the left-back position, and the more obvious choice would be Brandon Williams on a loan deal. But I thought I'd go for a more exciting one. Never mind how outlandish it might be. Alex Telles is a very, very good player and would be the absolute star man at Bournemouth. I think they could pick him up for somewhere between 10 to 15 mil, and it 100% would be worth it. Just imagine his set pieces getting whipped into Kiefer Moore's head. Absolute carnage. Newcastle, Chris Wood. Chris Wood looks like he is going to be leaving Newcastle in the summer. He was signed as a player they needed at that time, but they will probably sign another attacker this summer, and he will be even further down the pecking order. There is some talk of Kiefer Moore getting a transfer to another club, and Chris Wood would be a good replacement. Similar ages and similar types of players, this would be a very smooth transition from one striker to the next if they were wanting to keep to the same system. Nottingham Forest, Emmanuel Dennis. I was really impressed with Emmanuel Dennis when he was at Watford, and when I saw that Forest had got him, I thought that it was a great signing. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out that way for him so far this season, and although he has played quite a few games, his performances haven't been up to scratch. I think Forest would want to persevere with him, but whoever they do come to sell this summer, I think Dennis is a likely candidate if decent money is offered. I do think he's a good player still, and perhaps if he was given more consistent game time as a starter in the Bournemouth squad, his performances might pick back up. Southampton, Jack Stevens. This is an easy one and probably the most feasible of the list. Jack Stevens is currently on loan at Bournemouth, and I can see them making this one permanent in the summer, which is exactly what they should do. Although they haven't picked him every game, he has been an ever-present in the squad, and they can rely on Stevens to do a good job for them whenever he is called upon. They will be able to pick him up for next to nothing, I would have thought, and it would be worth it. Spurs, Harry Winks. It is finally looking like it is time for Harry Winks to move on from Spurs on a permanent deal. He is a good passer of the ball and a very tired player at that. His current situation reminds me of another English midfielder who played for Spurs' North London rivals in Arsenal, and Jack Wilshere. Two young technical English midfielders who showed promise but have stagnated and stayed at their boiled club for too long. Wilshere was a better player than Winks in his pomp, granted, but Winks has not had as much of a severe decline as Wilshere did, and he can definitely still do a very good job for a lower half Premier League team. Funnily enough, the comparison doesn't stop there, as Wilshere did of course finish his playing days in England at Bournemouth. Hopefully, if the Cherries did decide to go for Winks, he wouldn't end up the same way Wilshere did. West Ham, Arthur Masuaku. Returning to a position which Brentford need to improve, Arthur Masuaku would be a very solid investment in their left-back position. Currently on loan and playing for Besiktas, where he has scored 2 goals and created 3 assists in 22 games, which is a very proficient turnaround for a left-back, by the way. Masuaku is proving that he is a decent player who shouldn't be forgotten about. Fast, strong and attack-minded, he would be an improvement on Bournemouth's current options, and considering he will be into the last 12 months of his contract, they'd probably be able to pick him up at a reduced cost too. Wolves, Hwang Hee-chan. Lastly, I am going to finish on the positive thought of Bournemouth achieving Premier League security, and in that instance, their need to improve the starting lineup. With that in mind, I have opted for Hwang Hee-chan at Wolves. He definitely isn't the most prolific of strikers, but he is an absolute handful for every team he comes up against. Being able to play up top and on the wings would be a really nice option for Bournemouth to have, and I think his devastating pace would grab him a few goals for a Bournemouth side who will look to find him running in behind and will consistently have him in the starting lineup. So there we have it, guys. That was who I thought Bournemouth could sign from each Premier League team come the summer. If you liked what you saw, please do remember to like and subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on any of the picks that I made. Were they good? Were they bad? Were they whatever? Please do remember to check me out on some of my other socials as well. I am on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube of course, and Twitch, which is where I do all my streaming, all under the same handle, Bolts96, but the O is a 0. Next video we will be looking at Brentford, so make sure you come along and check that one out. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.